Hello everyone, welcome to this day, whatever time zone you're in. I wanted to address, and I have some notes here, I wanted to address, well, as the title says, what's the problem with most mandatory inclusion initiatives, and they're reactive. So many of you are aware of the Google Manifesto. You're aware of, I'm going to read this title from Business Insider article that I read this morning because it's very long. So I want to make sure I got it right. Programmers are having a huge debate over whether they should be required to behave respectfully to each other. We are having issues at events about codes of conduct, mandatory unbiased training, all these things. You see Starbucks is shutting down for a day to have mandatory unbiased training. And I challenge all of this. I mean, yes, I believe that there should be codes of conduct. Yes, I believe there should be unconscious bias training when a strategy has been laid out and it has been determined that it will be an effective step to take. But right now we're in reactive mode, and many of you know my saying is outrage is reactive, strategy is proactive. We will never move these issues while we're being reactive. It's just not going to happen, because when we're reactive, we don't think things out. We just do something and then we deal with the consequences later. And there are always consequences. There are always consequences. So what I see as the main issue with a lot of the initiatives that are undertaking for inclusion and diversity, not only are they reactive, but many people, privileged individuals, people from underrepresented and marginalized communities, see them as wedge issues. So I'm going to explain to you, wedge issue is this political term where it happens when it happened with prohibition. That's how they were able to outlaw alcohol in the United States, the sale, consumption, all of the alcohol in the United States, and that didn't work. It happens with abortion rights. It happens with gun rights. Usually anything that's dealing with the Constitution, or people have really strong religious or political views, and that's why I don't weigh into the political, religious, or moral, or this is the right thing to do when it comes to inclusion and diversity. Because what happens is you end up with people who, a reason wedge issues work, because you can get a group of people who will not agree on anything else under the sun. They are absolutely disagreeable about everything except for this one thing. And if you can get these individuals who have such diverse opinions about everything else to agree on this one thing, you can move mountains. Inclusion is not that thing. It is not a wedge issue. It is not a political issue. And I keep coming back to this. It is an economic and a business issue. And this is why, unfortunately, privileged individuals want to fight codes of conduct. They want to fight all these things, but they're not going to win, because the data continues to show that your bottom line of your employer will improve, or your community or your events will improve when you have a variety or diverse perspectives and people feel included. And that's just basically the experience for them. They feel safe and protected and welcome into the space. You really, if you had it sat down, if I could sit down with almost anybody and explain it that way, and they understand it. Because I'm not saying I'm taking anything away from you. What I'm saying is, for the first time, you're not the only perspective that matters. Your experience is not the only one that's important here. It's the various perspectives of those around you, all stakeholders, and that's people who work for you, people who partner with you, people who buy from you, and people who invest in you if you're an organization. And also, well, basically the same thing in communities and events. And so this has been happening so the article talks about this gentleman who left an open source project. It also addresses Node community that had the big blow up last year, which I addressed in my keynote when I spoke at Node Interactive last year. Because these are not siloed issues. These are systems issues. And the thing that gets me is I love leadership that says, this person, this behavior, this thing is not indicative or great representation of our culture. Yes, it is. And that's the problem. And that's why you're being reactive, because you're not dealing with the real issue. These are core values. And this is why I like to work with new entrepreneurs, so that they can put core values in place at the beginning that would dictate every decision that they make. When you have to go back later, particularly when you're talking about open source, where there's somebody who wrote some programming language or some framework or something, and then he gets his pals to come in on it, and no one's thought about this as a community and what makes healthy communities, or this is a business and what makes a scalable, profitable, safe business for all. This is what happens. And so I love people who say, oh, well, look at our mission statement. This is so counter to what we believe in. To me, this is a ridiculous analogy, but this is the analogy I get. It's like a person who is damnable telling you they are not pregnant as they're being laid out, epidural is being administered, and a head is coming out of their vagina. It is like, you're not pregnant? No, I don't care what you say. I'm not pregnant. Your core values, your mission statement is an action. And that they're not words that you plaster nicely on a wall or you put in PR stuff. And this is what gets me about inclusion. It's not a PR or marketing strategy. It is about the core of your organization. And so if you're going to be doing mandatory, any kind of thing, there needs to be a strategy behind it. Why are we doing this? Not reacting to something that's happened. So that's one of the reasons I have a challenge with a lot of codes of conduct when people use these boilerplates. Nice is not measurable. Being respectable is not measurable. Being kind is not measurable. What are other terms I would use? Harassment is not measurable. There's a spectrum. There are people who think if she gives me consent but changed her mind, I have not raped her. So you can't say harassing behavior and not define it. So that is where I have an issue. It's about defining terms. So if you're going to have a code of conduct that you're saying all people who are part of this community need to abide by, you need to define terms. You need to make sure everybody is clear, the terms are clear, and those terms have been agreed upon. And those individuals who cannot agree upon those terms, then they're welcome to go. No hard feelings, because this is how we're going to move forward. But there has to be an intention, a strategy around it. There has to be a conversation with these individuals and say, hey, this is how we define harassment. This is what when we say nice, this is exactly what we mean. And you outline those things, because my nice, to me, I think I'm the nicest person when I'm honest, but people have told me all my life, Kim, that's not nice. I think it's being quite nice and quite genuine to tell a person, if we're at a club, no, I don't want your drink because I'm not interested in you, then have this dude following me the whole night trying to talk to me when I had no interest in him in the first place. But in the South, that's not nice. So you can see, as I've said before, I was totally an anomaly being a black girl in the South. I was always told that what I was doing and who I was not appropriate. And to that I say, fuck you, because it's made me who I am. And one of the reasons I am able to speak out and have just decided not to work for anybody, because I didn't want my voice to be silenced. I had too many years of that. But this is what this video is about. You need to rethink your inclusion efforts. They need to be rooted in anything you're doing at the beginning. And if not, nature abhors a vacuum, and what you don't want to take place will eventually take place. So when you see something, stop being reactive or defensive and saying this is not how, because it is. It just is. And that's why it gets me about the Stack Overflow community. It's not toxic. You don't get to determine that it's toxic. The people who are telling you because they're not there, who you want to be there, are telling you it's toxic. I don't use that word because toxic has not been defined, but this is the term that these people are using. So you need to figure out how to make your community less toxic, and not going out to these underrepresented and marginalized community members and trying to get them to do the work for you for free. That's a problem. But yeah, as we look at improving inclusion and diversity, we have to stop looking at this as a political or moral or wedge issue. These are smart business practices, like marketing, like having a complying with the equal the EEOC. I can't think of the acronym, but safe working environments. Conclusion should be a practice, a strategy that every community, organization, and event has at its core. It is not something that should be thought of afterwards, because it's too hard to change something once it's already started. And it is not a one-off. Inclusion is a system, and it's very deeply rooted in how people experience whatever you have out there. So I just wanted to say that because I just see it a lot. I just see everybody throws up a code of conduct and they think they're done. The code of conduct is the first step. Now you have to do the work. Because most codes of conduct are not, they're not actionable because there's nothing to measure. Mandatory unbiased training. If I didn't want to go and I was mandated to go and with no clear understanding why I would be there, I'd be pissed too. So this is why we're fucking up with inclusion, because we're so reactive. So let's stop being reactive and being proactors and strategic about this so we can win this in the long run. So thank you and have a great day.